Hello and welcome back. You should now have Android Studio up and running, configured, and you should have a list of virtual devices or physical devices that you can deploy your target apps on. Right, so here's my physical device right here, my Android tablet. Before we do anything else with our application, I'd like to explore the Android Studio interface and get familiar with some of the features and files that are created for us when we start an Android Studio project. So you notice here we opened up our Hello World app and we were presented with these two files right here. We have mainactivity.kt and activitymain.xml. So these are two very important files. If they don't open up, you can find them over here in this project tab. So you can click your projects tab to get a file hierarchy. The main activity tab is here under Java, this first subfolder, and our layout file activitymain.xml is under the res or resources folder right here in the layout directory. Now, if you recall, we stated that every app needs an activity, which is a single focus thing that the users can do. We also said that every activity has an associated layout file that controls how the user essentially interacts with the activity. And here are the two files, right? That's pretty cool. They open right up for us. Android Studio makes this for us. The main activity is the first screen that's going to appear when the user launches the app. Right? They hit their launcher icon. So right here's my here is my icon for Hello World. As soon as I click this icon, it's this activity that's loaded up. Now this activity is essentially code, right? And so this code then does some work, and we'll see how to then bring in a layout file. And here is my associated layout file then. So, and that's the layout file that we see when running this. So this kind of works nicely. So somehow the main activity and the layout file are associated. So you may notice here that the names are very similar. And this naming convention is pretty standard when associating activities to their layouts. The activity is going to be uppercase, so main activity, and then the layout file, the words are switched and it's going to be lowercase, so activity underscore main. So for example, if my layout was called second activity, then my layout file would be activity second. And that's sort of the convention that we're going to use. It's pretty standard. So before we dive into really looking at how these files work, let's go look at where these files live in this project tab. So I'm going to actually bring this project tab over here, and again, so we can click here, we can expand this project tab, and this is like the file hierarchy of our application. So if I minimize this here, we have this app folder, and inside of the app folder we have a couple of subfolders, a manifest, a Java, and a res. You may not have this Java generated or res generated. If you don't worry. These are sort of built for us when we run our apps, and we're not going to really concern ourselves too much with them. So let's start with the manifest folder. So inside of this manifest folder we have this file Android manifest. Let's open it up and take a look. Here we can see things like our package name. So here's our package name, Hello World. We see references to like our app icon. So we have our icon and our round icon. We see the label, which is the name of our app. We see a theme that we're using. And it looks like we have a reference here to our main activity. This manifest file is essentially going to contain essential information about our app to the Android device. So this is like a lot of information we need in order to run, right? It says, okay, we're going to use this IC launcher as our icon. So that exists somewhere, and it sort of determines what this launcher icon looks like. Perfect. And we got this string like Hello World. That's maybe the name of that app right there. So Hello World. So this is also where we could define any permissions that our app might use to like access like the camera or contacts. We could express them here. So essentially the manifest is a file that we're going to put important information about the app. So that's our manifest. Next, let's go to the Java folder. So our Java folder right here, it looks like we've got 3 subfolders. Even though the folder says Java, remember we're using Kotlin, so rest assured we already going to use Kotlin. Remember Kotlin was sort of designed to work alongside Java, so it's just the fact that this says Java here, we don't have to worry about too much. So these 3 subfolders, we're going to concern ourselves with the first subfolder. This is where all of our Kotlin code is going to live, and this is where our main activity lives. The next 2 subfolders are for testing, and they contain tests, and that's really beyond the scope of our class here, so we're not going to worry about these 2 subfolders. Our third subfolder of importance is the res folder, and this contains all of our resources for our Android app. So if I open this up, you can see that resources include things like drawable images, layout files, strings, colors, etc. And Android does a really nice job of sort of organizing these for us. And so let's talk a little bit about each subfolder. The Drawables subfolder right here will contain images that our app will use. And primarily, we're going to work with something known as vector assets. And we'll talk about what vector assets are in an upcoming video. The map folder also holds drawings, but these drawings are what we would use for our icons. So look here, you can see the IC launcher and the IC launcher round, which are what were referenced in our manifest, right? Icon and round icon right here. So if I open up IC launcher, let's open up this file, you can see there's our app icon right there. So we somehow are telling, OS and the OS in our manifest that, hey, we want to use this sort of icon right here, this IC launcher. So this is where we're going to put all of our icons. So the drawables are going to be our vector assets that are going to be in the app, and the map folder is where we're going to put our icons. Next, we have our layout folder, which holds our layout. So there's our activity main.xml file, and we'll talk more about this layout file in the future. And then lastly, let's look at our values. Our values hold essentially values, right? So things like colors. So here are a bunch of color resources, and we're going to create some color resources for us. These are the colors that our current app is using. We have string resources, and we'll create string resources as well. Okay, good. So a nice little overview of the file hierarchy here. Some of the important folders. We have our manifest, where we're going to store important information about our app. We have our Java folder that's going to hold our Kotlin code, and then we have our resources folder, which holds things like our layout file. If I minimize all of the app directory, you see I have another thing right here. It's called Gradle scripts. So I'm actually going to close this stuff out here. And let's just look at what this Gradle scripts folder is. The Gradle is extremely important to Android app development. This is taken from Google's page. Gradle is a build automation system that uses domain-specific language to describe an app's project structure, configuration, and dependencies. Whew. So what does that actually mean? Well, it's the Gradle is what's going to build our apps for us, right? So like right now, our app, we have a Kotlin file right here, and we have a layout file right here. When we want to deploy them to our target, it's the Gradle that's going to build and compile them and put them together. All right, so it's going to figure out what does this app need to run. It's going to compile it, and it's going to put it onto our phones or devices. And in particular, it's going to take care of the dependencies for us. And so one of the things I like to think of it this way. When we start an Android Studio project, we sort of get the bare bones. And that's really a good thing. We don't want every piece of functionality for our app because it would maybe be a little bit too resource intensive. So instead, we start with very little, and we only bring in what we need. And so the Gradle file is a place where you can add library dependencies to your project to bring in the functionality that you need. So not only does it build our apps for us, but it also sort of takes care of dependencies. So it's really great. And so if we look here, there's lots of files, but we're only going to be primarily concerned with the first two files, the project level file and the app level file or module level. The project level file, if we open this up, it contains configurations that are common to all modules in the project. And so we're really only going to be working with one module, and so we really don't have to make many changes to this. But it's nice to look at. You can see our current version of Kotlin that we're running. We have a few dependencies in here, and then look, it says, note, do not place your application dependencies here. They belong in the individual module Gradle build file. So it's telling us, don't put stuff in this file, which is good. We should be putting them in the module file. So let's go look at this module file. We can see some things. We've got some plugins up here at the top defined. We have a default configuration. You can see here's our minimum SDK version that we're targeting, and then the current version, I think right here, that we're working on. And if I scroll down a little bit more, you can see I have a lot of dependencies listed here. So this is some native functionality that's going to be included in our app. If I want to add some functionality with the Gradle, it's pretty nice. All I have to do is just come here and add some lines in. And so I'm going to actually, if I go to this website, and I'll link to this website in the video below. Here is the Android developers website. These are all of the Jetpack libraries that we can work with. So things like, I don't know, card view. We could work with card view. We could work with something like, I don't know, grid layout or life cycle or recycler view. Where's recycler view? Recycler view right here. So if I want to bring in this functionality, like I'll click life cycle. Okay, we can see it right here. I have Kotlin and Java. I can just click which one I want. And so maybe I want to bring in view model and live data functionality into my app. And you don't know what those are. That's okay. You don't need to know it yet. I copy this. I come over to my Gradle file and I just paste it right in here in the dependencies. And that's all I have to do. If you notice here, it says Gradle files have been changed since the last project sync. A project sync may be necessary. Anytime you make a change to your Gradle file, you have to sync those changes. So you should click sync now. I'm going to ignore the changes though because I don't actually need this functionality for our little Hello World app. I just wanted to show that off. So the Gradle system can be a lot and it takes time to get comfortable with it, but don't worry. We'll learn more about some of these dependencies and why we would want to use them as the course progresses. To begin, we're going to focus on simple apps that don't need any extra dependencies. And so we're just going to say, hey, it's this Gradle that is going to build and compile our apps for us. So now we've explored the file structure in Android Studio. We've looked at the manifest, our main activity, and our layout file, as well as the Gradle file. In our future videos, what we're going to do is talk about each one of these files a little bit more in depth and see how they affect our app. So I look forward to seeing you in that video.